This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, now let's go ahead and screen share. Which one do you want to use, primary left? You can use both, but try to do as much as you can on one or the other.
Okay.
That'll be the one that'll be recorded.
Oh, okay.
Does that make sense?
Oh, okay. So just do one then?
Yeah, if you primarily do a lot of your stuff on here, then choose that one.
Okay.
And then hit share. Okay, perfect. Now, you can join. Hit invite attendee. Should be that little guy there. Link is fine. And then just start up a new email. And then send it to Matt. Hey, don't do that. What's the number? 6 8 what? 7 5 7 6 8 1 7 8.
Sure, pizza. Can we do that at Pizza Hut? Okay.
You
Get all breadsticks? No, I ordered a Pizza Hut here, and I had my 2 boxes. I went home, we were at pizza party, and I somehow ordered $20 worth of just breadsticks on accident. Like, I came home, I was like, what? I literally, like, my lip was like quivering. Pat was like, don't cry. We can have pizza tonight.
Everybody can see?
No, I cannot see that.
It's a little blurry, I understand.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Much better?
Better.
Okay,
Geesh.
Fleming,
Okay.
try to do everything that is needed to do the actual integration, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So any of the GP work, any of the AQ work, the whole prep.
All right. So I'm just picking random projects.
Let's pick one
There is this one.
that you haven't done. Oh, that one is ready to go.
They don't have dates for it yet.
So let's do an old one, and
Okay.
then you'll also go through the delete process as well.
Okay. You don't do anything. No, just
Exactly.
kidding.
Click on those little double arrows there.
Only when things get really messed up.
Okay. So I just find an old one.
Yep.
But not too old? Or not? Or
Yeah.
Medium old.
I would say probably an involved one. I say it involved. Not super small, but not super large either, but try to pick one that.
Pick the perfect one.
I don't really remember what's in all of these, but most plumbings are the same. So let's see. Let me just search plumbing. Okay, so typically plumbing projects are still in pending or pending quoted. This one, 3955 Maple Grove. Let's see, I think they executed everything.
articulate your thought process too.
Okay, I'll try.
I know it's hard.
If you're not familiar with the job folders, get familiar because you're going to be all over them. All right, so I open up the job folder first, and it will be a lot smaller when you first do a plumbing. This billing info sheet is created at the time that we do a plumbing, so it's typically not there. There is one saved in the training folder, I believe.
Do you just have a shortcut then?
I have a shortcut, yes. Training, integration, there it is. Billing info sheet. So yeah, you just put a new one of these in the folder and just add the store number at the end. Sorry, I'm so used to moving my thing. We will start by pulling up the final plumbing quote saved in the folder because it is the itemized version and it has all of the totals that you need down at the bottom, merchandise, freight, tax, and then the grand total. And you'll enter those right in here. So this is the numbers the customer signed off on. So we keep that in front of us so we know that that's kind of where our total needs to be during the whole process because that is what the customer wants. I'll leave that open just in case. You will search in AQ by the store number, and you will see this one, and this one at the beginning, the plumbing, the lighting equipment. Or you may not even see the lighting and equipment yet. They may not have been quoted yet. And you will make a copy. So you just right-click, create duplicate project. And then,
Does it always place that copy on top?
Yeah.
yes. And then I just add integration right at the beginning of the name. So you know that this is your integration copy because you're going to be manipulating it, but we do not want to change the quote that we sent to the customer at all. So we want to leave that one as is, and that's why we make our integration copy. We'll open that up. A couple of things I do at the beginning are check and make sure that we have the store number listed here. This has to be in here. This is the customer ID. This is what GP reads as the customer ID. So if that is empty, you'll need to put that in there.
What did you click on to get there? Sorry.
No, you're fine. Customers and team, and then this is the customer name, so you just double click on that. There also must be info here. I believe it has to have an address or it won't allow integration, but it does not overwrite what we have in GP, but I think it just has to be in there. Another thing I check is on the right-hand side here. Settings, the code is going to translate into the customer PO on the sales order in GP. And so for plumbing, that's the JJ store number and then P. Lighting equipment end in L or E. And then this job ref is also the store number. This is going to be the sales territory ID. And this has to be in there. This is what the AQ import grabs as part of the ship to and bill to addresses. So if this is not in there, it's not going to be able to find the ship tos and bill tos when it integrates, and you'll get an error. All right, next thing I do is I'll verify the total is matching what the customer signed off on. So I'll pull up my billing info. That's 6845.20, and that matches, so we're good so far. On plumbing orders, you do not necessarily have to delete these inactive items. These light gray items are inactive. They're not being used, but it's part of our template, so that's why they're there. You do not necessarily have to delete them on plumbing. It will allow us to integrate without deleting those.
But if you want to.
If you want to, you can. It's much cleaner.
Yeah.
You can use Shift and Control to go through quickly and get rid of those. The only thing when you do that is, as you delete things, check your total, make sure it does not change, to make sure that you didn't delete something that was supposed to be there. A couple other things you can look at is any kind of unnecessary comments that maybe we wanted on the quote to the customer, such as this lead time is 10 weeks. That's not something we need on the sales order or the purchase orders. We wanted the customer to see those, but we don't need those for the integration, and so it's just best to delete those so they don't pop up as like an extra line item anywhere. All right. JJ Plumbings are pretty easy because we go off the templates. All the info we need is in there. There shouldn't be anything that you have to add except unless there is a change order that's already been presented to the customer. So if you look through their folder, you can see if they have any plumbing change orders. And I do not see any. If there was a plumbing change order, it would have been done in Excel, and we would have wanted the customer's signature before we implement the change. So if they had signed off on, say, adding an extra clean-out body, we would implement that change now. So we would change the quantity here. You would note that change order in your billing info sheet so that you could keep an eye on your numbers to make sure that you weren't adding anything extra, but that you were still getting what the change order added to the project. All right, so next step is select all, right-click, and more, and link to catalog. We do that on JJ projects only. If you don't, it will sometimes throw an error if we don't do that step. And then this one is prepped, ready to go. So now we will just click up here, the ACC XML export. Mine defaults to this My Projects folder. I'm not sure if we set that up right at the beginning.
I think if you do it once, it
It remembers it. So yeah, you'll just have one place that you kind of have these export to. I also have a done folder in here. So usually I'll at this time just move anything that is done into that folder. Oops. That's odd. Why did it do that? Oh, because I named it. There we go. All right, so I exported it, and now we're going to open up AQNet import. AQ import.
Yeah, that's something that we're gonna have to give you guys match. I'd say I won't.
So this is the in-between program that gets it from AQ to GP.
What is
And
this supposed to do?
what's that?
What does this actually do? Does this cut all the POs and?
It creates it creates the sales order, and it creates the purchase orders, if there are any. It doesn't send the purchase orders, just creates them. So I'm going to load this order here. It's telling me that basically I've already done this project before, saying you've already loaded this information before. Do you want to delete what's already loaded? I'll just say yes. If it's the first time you've done it, it's not going to.
So do you do this, do you reload this if there's ever a problem? Is that what?
stuff.
Yes, I don't think I ever hit no, I always hit yes. So if you get to this screen and you see quote file loaded successfully, then that's good. It's already done some pre-checks and everything is good so far, and there's no problems. So it's loaded. Now you go up top here, select quote, and choose that 3955P. Set dropship PO options. PO required date. This is going to be the date we want the vendors to ship the items. So you will have to determine when the customer wants the items and the transit times from the manufacturers, and then add a day if there's a call before delivery. That always adds an extra day.
Where do you get that date from?
That day, that will be in an email. It's an execution email from projects. Jenny's doing it now. Basically, once the customer has signed off on everything and sent their payments, they send this execution email to me saying this is ready to integrate. And let me find that source email so you can see it. This job info sheet that's in the folder is essentially what the email is. What the email will look like. So these lighting and equipment items probably won't be there because plumbing is usually executed by itself. But here you'll be able to see city, state, store, job site contact right here. This is when we received their signed quote, contract, and payment. This is their requested delivery dates. Sometimes they'll put per GC. Typically, projects will have already contacted the GC and they will get a better date from them, or projects will say, give them basically the ASAP date of, with plumbing is 2 weeks, 2 weeks lead time. So 2 weeks from the date we received your signed contract, and then projects will note that date here. So this is the date you're gonna look at. The date that they relayed is attainable. And they put ASAP on this particular project, which would be basically 2 weeks. Now on plumbing, usually the only drop shipped items are the porcelain items, and they don't need those right away. They don't need those at the same time as the in-ground items. We don't want those sitting on site for weeks where they can get broken. So we always tell them, even if they request them ASAP, we say, how about we wait and hold off till you execute your lighting? That's when you're gonna need them. And in that case, we will just place that PO on hold. They may have already given you a date that's 3 or 4 weeks down the road, so you would use that date instead. All right. Go back here. So since we're gonna say that they are going to get their porcelain items with lighting, we don't know when they're going to execute their lighting. We don't want these to ship too soon. So typically, the PO required date on plumbing for the porcelain items is going to be 6 months in advance. That just gives us a safety net. So I just go 6 months into the future and mark that. And then we're also going to place the PO on hold as a secondary way to make sure that that doesn't get sent out.
So you have to put a date on it no matter what, which is why you go somewhere out.
Ship to, so you'll just choose the 3955 ship. Ship method is pretty much always R&L now, since we only use them. PO type is going to be drop ship for these. And then the SOP options, this is the order options. The batch we want this to go in is plumbing. Ship method is, again, R&L. Salesperson, I always put my salesperson ID so I can find the orders quickly. I don't know if they will change that in the future to maybe project team members, initials or not. This always stays the same. Order type always stays as con as long as it's a contract order. So unless somebody specifically says we just want this as a standard order, it'll always be con. And I don't use this order notes field anymore because it didn't work like we thought it would, I think. So I don't ever put anything in there.
What was it supposed to do?
You were supposed to be able to pick like this third party, and it would put the third party comment ID on the purchase orders, but it literally just puts third party. It doesn't put the actual saved comment ID the extended version of it on there.
Is that something we can fix?
And then I'm just going to hit import. It takes it a minute. But as long as you see purchase orders were successfully imported and import of quote is complete, then that's a good sign. It gives you the new GP sales order number right here, so that you can go into GP now. And I'm just going to go to my orders entered today. It's an easy way to get to it. There it is. All right, so it's created the sales order for us. It's got all the items. It's marked any dropship items as dropship. And it has created a PO and linked these items to the PO, which is typically manually done by purchasing when you enter orders manually in GP. You have to manually do your Control-T to get tax to load. So that's the first thing I do when I open up these orders. And then I'm going to go to my billing info sheet. Fill in my order number. And then the subtotal, freight, tax, 6845.23, 6845.23. So this is what GP says. This is what the customer signed off on, 6845.20. Tax is typically off by a few cents. That's not an issue. It's just a rounding issue. And if tax is way off, accounting will catch that at PDI time and final settlement time, and they can make adjustments for whatever reason that the tax was off. Maybe we quoted the wrong tax rate. So they will catch that at like PDI and they'll fix that.
How often does that happen?
Not often, just on certain states. Florida, Tennessee, they have weird tax laws, so those are
Communist states then.
those are always wrong. But you'll get to be familiar with which states those are and realize that that's what the issue is. If it's something that doesn't look right, and you can always bring it up to accounting or projects and see if it needs addressed immediately. But like I said, a few cents is just a rounding issue. That's not a big deal. Go to the back screen and just double check that everything's correct. If for some reason they wanted this shipped to an alternate address, we wouldn't change it here like you would on a regular sales order because it could alter the tax. The final destination is going to be the store's job site. So that's where they want the tax rate to be. So you would just put the alternate address in this comment ID here. And then that alternate address would also be noted on the plumbing calendar.
Like alternate address, like a AJL, or
No, maybe they just,
we want to send it to the contractor instead?
yeah, send it to the contractor's office, or send it to my home until the site's ready, until we have our permits, or, something like that. All right. So like I said, I used to have to link these manually. We don't have to do that anymore because Matt is great. So that's already done. The last thing I will do is I will add the job site contact name and number here in the comment ID, which I think you guys are familiar with on like large equipment quotes. And again, that's going to be in that job info sheet or execution email here. And then we can save that. The sales order part is done. This will often come up saying customer's credit limit is exceeded because all of their original orders are obviously large. So you just continue, and again, if there's an issue, accounting addresses those. Now I'm going to open up the purchase orders that were created. I've got a smart list here for PO Finder integration. When AQ Import creates the purchase orders, it's always like a 6-digit number, like 232454 dash the store number. So I always search by dash the store number. Let me do it again, 3955. And it's going to bring up all the purchase orders that end in that. So if we were doing this for the first time, obviously, it would have only created these two, the Delfield and the Zurn. That's another thing to point out. The Delfield soda cabinets are in the plumbing quotes now because of the long lead time. So that is an extra thing. You do have to address it this time. Here's the new ones that just created. Here we go. So if you'll remember, here, let me start here. We just started this. Buyer ID, you're going to put in your initials because you've created this PO, so they're just trying to separate who's created what POs. So Eric puts his initials when he does POs and that kind of thing. Next thing I do is I go into this back screen here. Make sure that the ship to is correct. They may have asked for an alternate address for this as well. And in which case you would click this blue arrow here and type in the address. You could change your ship method here if you need to. That is basically all we do on this screen. So this is all correct. Now when we did the AQ import, I chose a date 6 months in advance for the porcelain items. You are always going to have to change dates on purchase orders because we can only pick that one date, but most of the line items are going to be shipping at different times due to transit times or different requested dates for different items. So soda cabinets, since they have such a long lead time, we want to put those into production as ASAP, so you'll have to change the date on this. And on purchase orders, you cannot change the date for the whole thing. You have to go into each line item and change the date. So that's this blue arrow here. Required date. This is the date we would ask them to ship it out. So since this one we want to go into production for ASAP, today is the 26th, I always just go to the next business day, 29th. They will get that into production and put it in the queue in line, and then they're going to come back with a date in September, but that is, instead of the words ASAP, putting in like the next business day is your best option. And then we'll just hit save. comment ID, you're gonna look at and probably adjust on every vendor PO, on every PO. So since this one's shipping R&L, it's gonna be third party. And then you also want to put in for soda cabinets, they need a lift gate. And then they need a call before delivery, which I copied and pasted earlier, so that's still there. And then that one is good. You can hit save and you can go back to your smart list, or I just hit this little arrow here to go to the next PO that it created. Yeah,
Just to backtrack a second,
go ahead.
are those buyer IDs always going to match whoever's, you said they're always gonna match who's ever integrating, right? So, it could theoretically be the same as whatever you put in that salesperson ID box in AQ Import. Are they
Yes.
always going to match? It's basically, the question is.
Yeah, whoever's creating the PO, so whoever's doing that integration, yes, we would want their initials there.
Okay.
Yeah. I thought Jenny had already brought that one up to you, but maybe not. So yeah, that is something you could put on the
Yeah.
AQ Import screen. Okay, so like I say, you can hit save, or you can go back to your smart list to go to the next record, or you can just hit this arrow here. Don't hit this one. Don't hit last record, or it's gonna cycle through all of the POs in the world.
Which one do you not push?
The one with the line.
Okay.
Click the one in the middle, next record.
No line.
It's gonna ask if you wanna save it, just hit save. So now, this is the Zern PO it just created. This is the one that we did put in a date of 6 months in advance, so it's got that date there, so we don't have to change that for now. The next thing I do immediately is I'm gonna put this on hold. Again, that's our other safety net to make sure that these don't go anywhere. If they do, we have that secondary, they're not gonna ship it till January, so.
Is anyone else really looking at these, like, say Eric or someone, and he would maybe accidentally, take the hold off, or, you know what I mean?
Probably not.
Okay.
In the past, when the reason we put all these safety nets in is they were getting accidentally sent.
Yeah.
When they might send like a range of POs or,
Okay. So pretty much those are the two safety nets, the 6 months
Yeah.
out and the hold should alert whoever that,
and I have a system in place to follow up on these.
okay.
Basically I follow up on them every 1 to 2 weeks to see if they've executed equipment and lighting. Because as soon as they do that, we know we have a lighting date and that it can be released with that lighting date as the requested ship date. Go to the back screen here, make sure ship to is correct, shipping method, okay. I'm just gonna confirm here. They'll put, I keep trying to point to the computer. If they want it shipped somewhere else, it'll be here, listed here, alternate address. Always check the notes, maybe there's something that they might, that wouldn't fit in this little box here. You can look there. Alternate addresses will be listed down here. I think that's pretty much it. So this one would be good to save. We use Trello to keep track of them. So at the time that they send the email, the execution email, it'll be here. I didn't think about calendar maintenance. I don't know if that's going to stick with them or how that's going to go, but I would typically then put it on the JJ Plumbing calendar and place it here until I've integrated it. And then once I've integrated it, I would place it here until I send the POs. So now is when you would send the POs via Messenger, which we don't want to do. So
the execution email that we get is automatically gonna pop up in Trello, like, hey, this is new. Like, that's how you're gonna be notified of it, or?
You'll see this card pop, this
Okay.
card will be on Trello, and then you also have an email to match it.
Okay.
Where it, like, for example, this particular project here, the St. Simmons Island, I saw on Trello, but I don't have an email
I
yet.
saw that.
So I
Yeah,
asked,
this morning.
yeah, I asked projects about it, and they said, we don't quite have all the dates yet.
Okay, so is it like, so it's Jenny or projects or whoever that's putting that on Trello?
Yes.
Okay.
So should I open up Messenger and just kind of show what it would be like to send them? Okay. All right. This is why I use 2 screens. Okay, so this is Messenger. Don't know if you've ever been in there or seen it. This is probably going to change though, right?
That's okay though, it's still gonna be,
Irrelevant for a while.
Yeah.
yeah.
Messenger client, print purchase orders, process, unprinted docs. Open up my smart list here again. So you can see the POs you just created by looking at this integration smart list that I have, or there's also a contract POs to send. Oh my.
Yeah, can you take like a screenshot of all your smart lists?
And
And then
Yeah,
just email
no
it just so
kidding.
we know
Yeah.
kind of what you work with.
So these are all ones that haven't been sent via messenger to vendors. Oh, this does not show POs that are on hold. So it's not showing that CERN. That's another safety net, I guess. It doesn't come up on their smart list to send, so they won't bother checking on it. But the Delfield one is. So that's the one you would send. So you would put in the range, 237-006-3955. And then you would hit process, and it would send to everyone it needs to. There's obviously a long list of all the different vendors and reps that the purchase orders are going to go to. Some purchase orders go to the purchasing inbox because you have to manually choose who you're going to send it to. Different reps for different items, on, from the same vendor, kind of thing. So you would hit process. It would send it. I would go to the KEC design sent box. I think it also goes from purchasing. And you would see the sent email that Messenger sent, and I'd be able to go in here and grab the PO and save it in the job folder. You would just grab the PO from that sent email, drop it in there, save it by the first 6 digits, and then the vendor. So this one would be 237-006 Delfield. I think that's it. Delfields, there's an extra step. We have a Delfield PO follow-up spreadsheet. Because of their long lead times, we don't want them to, if it takes an extra 3 months for them to execute their lighting and equipment, we don't want the Delfield to then ship out too early. So I keep an eye on all the Delfield POs we send. As you can see, the info I put in here. And then once an acknowledgement is provided by Delfield, I will put in their acknowledged ship date here.
So this is probably something that Shannon.
That's
Yeah,
what
yeah.
I'm yeah.
And then I will check those a week before their scheduled ship date. So I would set a task, typically I'd set a task either, per job, or you can set it up to check it twice a week, or, whatever works for you.
So 1 week out,
1 week out, I will look and see if they've executed lighting and equipment. And if they have not, then that PO needs to be revised with a revised ship date that is 1 to 2 weeks backed out.
I feel like you CC me on those emails where we kind of,
Sometimes, yeah. And once they acknowledge that new, or I'll put that date here, that date I requested. Once they acknowledge that, I will basically move that date over to here and start the process over. Until their lighting and equipment is released and that Delafield PO is released, done with, then I'll move that line to just this holding sheet. Make sense? We can go over that more later.
Yeah, okay, cool.
All right. I'll close that out for now. So that would be plumbing. Any questions?
You think that this pretty much goes through all of that, like, step by step?
Yep.
What are some of the typical issues you might come
Yeah, like,
across?
what are the biggest things, like, that you feel like you miss or that, like, causes a problem? Or, I know you said, like, territory IDs is huge.
Yeah. So the biggest thing is if you get any kind of error on AQNet import, I started to recognize some of the errors that pop up, and you're just going to get a bunch of code. I started to recognize some of them. It'll say something about, like, missing territory ID, and I would be like, oh, that's what that was. I could go fix it.
Yeah.
If you don't know what it is, then that's when I email IT. Plumbings are very easy. They're pretty straightforward. So, like I said, they're on a template. There's not a lot you have to change. Yeah, I don't usually have a lot of issues with it. Let me pause.
Are there any other questions pertaining to a plumbing?
I don't know how to formulate questions at this point.
You know?
I'm just taking it all in.
It's just like one of
yeah.
those things I
Hard
want
to
to go
explain.
through and do it myself.
Yeah,
because,
exactly. Well, I can barely even see the screen.
You know,
I'm trying to look at it.
yeah, I can watch you fill it out, but like,
Right.
getting to each place and, okay, this is what I do after this step, and this is what, you know.
I assume.
It's more, like, none of it seemed hard, it's just knowing what.
A lot of
to look
different-
for,
It's
you know,
not
like different
intuitive
places.
to it, yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
I assume Zern is always that 6 month out because they're the porcelain, yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. And Delafield or whoever, it's always the other way around, where they can be adjusted.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of
So
funny.
are Zern, is there ever a case where Zern POs shouldn't be 6 months out and on hold?
If they specifically come out with a requested date, you know, let's say they execute on 7/26, and they said, I want my porcelain items on 7/27. We know they don't need them tomorrow. They don't have their in-ground plumbing. We know they don't. So we're gonna tell them, no, we're gonna put this on hold. If they come and say, I want my porcelain items on 8/30, that we would probably go with and just go ahead and release the PO. If they come and say, please send the porcelain items to my contractor now, we would probably let them do that. We'd probably go ahead and release it.
So it does vary enough, but I was just thinking as a default, should we always set them to be on hold? If it's their PO? But with
No,
that-
sometimes there are in-ground items that end up on that Zern PO, in which case you would have to send that PO, but you would have 3 line items, 2 for porcelain and 1 for like a wall carrier that they need right away. You would have to go into those line items, make sure the porcelains are 6 months out, and make sure the wall carriers have an immediate ship date.
So it really just varies and it needs attention
Yeah.
from a human.
Would it be
Sorry,
easier?
Yeah.
From a human.
Would it be easier to put them out
Such an
6
IT
months
guy.
every time? And then just take the ones off hold that don't need to be?
Yes, I could see that.
Yeah, that was really my question, is if 85% of the time they're on hold, would it be safer to just put it on hold directly from AQ import?
Yeah, I could see that being a good plan.
But they're-
I mean, either way, you're still looking at it.
that's true.
Yeah, you
You're
still-
double checking no matter
Yep.
what, so whether you have to select it or
Exactly.
it's already, you know,
So you might as
you're
well touch
still
it
having to
anyways.
double
Yeah, I mean, the hold's just a checkbox. So I
Yeah.
was thinking more like that buyer ID, you can just get that in there,
For sure, yes.
stuff like that. Okay, that was my question.
Yeah, and I guess my other biggest thing is just getting all of this stuff on there, so, you know, how to access.
Messenger.
Right, you
Everything.
have, checklists, used checklists
Okay.
for a long time. Use them. And I'll look at those to make sure that they're up to date. There's also, I think, some cheat sheets as far as, freight methods for different vendors.
Okay.
Things like that.
Good so far? Good for now?
Good for now.
I don't see any heads exploding yet, or they did and I just didn't know.
Which is pretty cool.
I can't figure out how to open this.
Yours is at the very top.
Oh,
Yeah, hit that,
there you go.
and then we'll
Pause?
pause, yep.